Morning, YouTube. So this is not a Honda. It's also really not a Chevy or a Geo so much as it's a Suzuki. So this is a Geo Tracker, sister car to the Suzuki Sidekick, and predecessor to the Suzuki Samurai, which those things were pretty cool. They had a solid front and rear axle, and you could four-wheel the hell out of them and pay like no money for them. I had 3 of them years ago, and I've even had a couple of these, and they're really fun to drive. I know that sounds, I don't have a not so derogatory word, so I'm just going to shut my mouth there, but at any rate, I wasn't going to film any of this. I've already kind of started. I came in to do a tune-up, and I pulled the spark plug wires individually, and I pulled the spark plugs. I started to, at least, and I got to this third hole here, which you can see there's like a hard portion. They do like a rubber boot and then a hard intake and then back to the box with rubber. I don't know why. But at any rate, I don't know if you can see down in that hole, but I went to pull this spark plug out, and there you go. The spark plug's still down in there. It's missing the piece you put the wrench on. So yeah, it looks like somebody else has already been here. They went to maybe also tune the motor up at some point. These are the number 1 and 2 that came out. And they broke it, or it was broken, who knows. All I know now is I might have the opportunity to show you guys head gasket job. It's entirely likely I'm not going to be able to get that out without removing the head. So, here's the first try. Alright. So as you can see, I removed that metal tube. That was part of the intake that was sort of in the way. There was a couple other covers and brackets and things over here. All of these hoses went to that tube. One of them was PCV. That's this guy here. Oh, actually, that goes to the intake plate. That valve cover. But anyways, there was a couple for coolant. There was that breather one there. They were all plumbed into that hard tube. So looking down in there, the valve cover is about 1.5 inches thick, keeping me from really grabbing. Oh, that's a good clean number cylinder 4 hole. That's what it's supposed to look like. Scoot you back here to this one. Fluid got down in there, so it looks like if I remove the valve cover, I might be able to grab, I'm not sure, but something to grab that porcelain. If I can at least break it without dropping it down in, then I have like a Ford kit. This happens with Fords quite a lot. The 3-valve Triton motors are super notorious for this, and Lyle Tools actually makes a kit for the Ford. Now, it's not for this motor, but if I can just get a hole there, then maybe I can get the Ford tool to grab onto that thing, and I can avoid pulling the head. That's kind of what we're trying to not do here, is pull the head. It is this Geo Tracker, so pulling the head's not a gigantic deal, but if I can save the customer, I don't know, $1,000 by not pulling the head, give or take, then yeah, I most certainly will. Because once you pull the head, we're not talking about just a head gasket. We're talking about doing it right. So you've got a timing belt involved, you've got a water pump involved, you've got all those gaskets involved, you've got cleaning involved, and machine shop work. You don't really have to do, the motor runs, but if the head's off, I say check it. Of course, that will be up to the customer. At any rate, I'm going to go ahead and get this valve cover off and see if that helps things out at all with being able to get to that spark plug. Look, you guys, VTEC. No, I'm kidding. It's definitely not VTEC. Cam's kind of funny. Cam on this operates these long lifters, and then on this side they go right over the top. It's very strange. Kind of cool though. Anyways, with the valve cover off, you can see how much closer I am to the hole. There's a good hole. There's another good hole. There's number 3 here. Here we go. and I can maybe get something in there now. You can see a hell of a lot better. I can touch it with my pinky finger. So maybe if I can get that thing to free up and pull out, then I can use a simple extractor to get the rest of it out of there. We'll see. Alright guys, so here's the culprit, and as you can see, I was somewhat wrong. The nut is still there. It was being covered by an old piece of a plug wire. Now this engine didn't have a real bad skip in it, and I'm not sure how now, because the plug wire I pulled out of there is complete. So, that being said, I'm either the luckiest. Yeah, we were about to pull this head. Really glad we didn't go quite that far. The spark plug happened to be loose enough to grab it with those needle nose pliers, and I saw it turn, and I was very excited about that. So here we are, good clean hole, 4 of them. Crisis averted. So I can go ahead and put this thing back together. Probably take me 20 minutes or so. And we can get back to working on the CRX up there.
I don't think it's worth it to the end user. This, however, is terrific.
All right.
I mean,
spark plugs back in the holes.
4 pounds, and it's taken so much weight off the car. It's also
Torque spec, meaning there's a crush washer on those spark plugs, and you just sort of get the feel for that over time when the crush washer's stopped crushed before you get to the point of over tightening and breaking it. You know, foot-pounds wise, it's probably like 20. Anyways, to get to the distributor, Phillips head screws, you have to take and wedge a screwdriver in between the firewall and the coil to apply the right amount of pressure to get that thing to crack free. Then you can see I've already done that. Alright, we've got the distributor cap off now. I'm trying to get some light for you to see, but you can see, well, you can see the dust there. This thing was in pretty bad shape. I drove this car before we took it apart, and it drove pretty good. So I'm really excited to see how much better it drives, you know, making full contact, full spark. There's no way that the rotor and cap were making, you know, any good jam. This motor really does in the first place. With these parts, though, there's just no way. I've got a couple of different rotor buttons for it. This is a random box of filters that I intend to put in it, and plug wires. We got a fuel filter, sugar cap, and here's the 2 rotor buttons. And I couldn't really tell at the parts store which one it would take. They said the 2 were completely different. I hadn't had the cap off when I made the phone call, so I said, you know, just send me both. I'll send you one back that's not right. No, it doesn't look right, but that may or may not be the case. You know, the factory one just being that it's that big fat plastic. Neither one of these boxes look like they're big enough for that amount of rotor button. Anyways, the aftermarket one's gonna look a little different. Actually, that looks like the guy there, doesn't it? And I don't see a screw hole, so that thing should just pull right off and pop right on. A little bit of pressure. Let's find it. Okay guys, I got this tracker up in the air. I'm currently waiting on that valve cover gasket, because now that I've pulled the valve cover, it's only right to replace the gasket. I came down here to replace the fuel filter. That's where they hide it on this car. Way down here by the tank. I cracked the lines. I'm waiting for it to stop dripping. And that's the new fuel filter there. Obviously there's a bracket that I'm going to pull down. Looks like 17 wrench to crack the ends, and then 2 10 millimeters is one bracket bolt there, and then there's one adjacent above there. You can kind of see it. My flashlight's super bright. So yeah, just waiting for that to drain out. Once that drains out, hopefully the valve cover gasket shows up by then. It'll be like lunchtime, so either lunch or valve cover gasket. Get this thing together and probably do one more, you know, showing it running. All right, guys, basically to stop dripping, I removed the 2 bolts from that bracket there and the 2 lines. The bolt lines, the banjo bolts, there you go, that thread into the filter have these washers, one there, and then it goes the line, and then it goes another washer. The other washer is still actually stuck on the fuel filter itself, and that is the direction the fuel filter sits in there. So if you notice, it has kind of a, I don't know, top hat or a wider base. I always try to take it apart and put it together the same way. When I pull it down, I put it straight down so I know it goes that way. And also, this is the bolt for this side of the filter and that line. And over here, I got the bolt for this side. Now, a lot of times, none of that stuff matters. However, if you put it back together the way you took it apart, it will likely work the way it did when it came in. Yeah, that's just, I have scenarios where I can show you that somebody put a bolt in the wrong spot and it was a little too long and punctured an engine and, you know, took what should have been a nothing job and made it a motor job. So if you just simply take the time to put the stuff back together exactly where you found it from, you'll really never have these problems. I know that's basically not always possible. However, when it is possible, just take the extra time to do it right. I'm going to now take some of this anti-seize stuff and coat, you know, the holes up there where the new bolts go through, and you know, a thin layer here doesn't hurt between the bracket and the frame. Anyways, I'm also going to put some, see there, just slop it on there nice. I'm also going to put some on the little tiny bolts that are holding that filter bracket on, because this vehicle, being a 95 Geo tracker, I mean, look at it, you guys. It's been oiled every year. The rocker panels are in really nice shape where they're usually rotted all the way out. So this car's gonna last, is my point. The customer really likes it, and actually I really like it too. So I'm helping them keep it alive since 1995. And they take my advice, and they do basically everything that should be done to keep this thing running and on the road, which is why we're tuning it up today. So yeah, at any rate, I'm gonna go ahead and put this thing back together, just reverse procedure, and then hopefully our valve cover gasket shows up and we can get this thing back outside. Didn't actually get a chance to wrap that video up, putting it back together, but it's literally reverse procedure. Everything's wicked tiny, so don't over torque the hell out of all the little tiny bolts. Just use that superpower I call common sense. And yeah, runs like a top.